Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Already standing by.
Life sciences.
Same report.
So are we gonna just let it hold us here? We've got phaser weapons. I vote we blast it.
I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Bailey. When this becomes a democracy.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Captain, why should I aim at such a structure?
Mind, Spock. Just get on with the job.
Hello and welcome. We are back with another episode of Future Imperfect. Birdman is out for the count for the next probably few episodes, but we are going to try to get him on for our full season recap of Strange New Worlds once he's able to catch up and give his thoughts. But for the first half of this, we're covering episodes 1 through 5. I am joined with the rest of the crew. As far as introductions go, let's start from West Coast to East Coast. So who have I got from the Rockies?
Well, that would be Steve Megatron.
All right, Steve, back from mountain climbing.
Yes.
We can leave it at that.
Yeah, I should get a shirt like Shatner from Final Frontier that says "Go climb a rock."
See, I was thinking about how do I work that in.
They had it in Lower Decks too.
Yeah,
well, that's right.
I thought about it. I'm like, I should get that shirt and then get one of the Starfleet uniform jackets that go over top.
And you've already heard him there from the great state of Michigan.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
And you're back from a pretty exciting but different weekend as well, right?
Well, yeah, because if you did not know, it is legal to own flamethrowers in every state of the union except California.
Really?
So this weekend, yeah, it is actually. I can technically own a flamethrower legally.
I've never seen that here. I bet it would be outlawed here because of the drought.
It's only illegal in California.
Wow.
And it's probably not for the reason you'd think. I would assume it's because it's too dry there.
Yeah, no, that is it.
Yeah.
That is it, yeah. It's too easy to start wildfires with a flamethrower. Who would have thought? But it's... this weekend was filled with flamethrowers and tanks and fully automatic machine guns and bolt action guns like I have.
You see, I knew it. Us Canadians pulled a sneaky one on you. We're taking over, so you had to go to war with us, right?
No, we were fighting mock Japanese troops in Pacific theater stuff, and then fighting Nazis in European theater
as one
battles.
does on the weekends for fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, one does have to practice fighting fascism because fighting fascism is a full-time job.
Yes. But yes, you had a fun time at the reenactment. What was this one called?
This was for Lest We Forget down in Benton Harbor, Michigan.
I think I saw you posted like an itinerary, and it looked pretty like action-packed for what was going on for like the couple days.
Yeah, it was Women at War. So it was mostly remembering the U.S. service women that served as WASPs and WAVEs.
Yep.
But as Soviet reenactors, Soviet women actually fought in combat roles right alongside men, as snipers, combat pilots. Every job in the military could have had a woman in it. And many did volunteer to serve. So our kind of education for that, for this event was really centered on the female contribution in the Soviet Union.
Which is pretty cool that, people are finally able to gather and do these bigger events again.
Yeah, it is. I mean, most of these things are outside, so, as long as you're comfortable with the rest of your unit being there, you can generally keep a social distance from anyone else that's visiting from the public.
Well, which is awesome. So, I mean, for me, I didn't go anywhere, do anything super exciting. We were in the midst of a heat wave here, so I hibernated and caught up on the last few episodes of Strange New Worlds that I hadn't seen yet. One of which was being episode 5 that we're going to discuss here. So, I think we should probably start by recapping, I guess, our initial thoughts on what we were thinking the show was going to be. We had thought, hey, maybe this is going to be a more positive show. Maybe this is going to be better. But I know we were pretty skeptical. I had seen an early press access clip, and it turns out it was from episode 2. and I was like, hey, this looks different. The lighting, the camera work, the pacing, the dialogue, it seemed a little closer to classic Trek with a bunch of visual flares and some camera trickery from the modern day stuff. And I was hoping that they weren't going to like pull a fast one on us. And, you know, lo and behold, we go in to watch episode 1, and it's not at all what the other Treks are like recently.
No.
No.
You know what? I mean, at the very least, the first 5 episodes overall, I would argue are some of the best live action. Well, is the best live action Trek since it returned.
So basically, since 2004.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since Enterprise, it is clearly the best live action Trek. I would actually say that Prodigy and Lower Decks are better for me. I think I enjoy them more still, but that's not really disrespecting Strange New Worlds, because I really like Prodigy and Lower Decks.
It's just the certain things, the freedoms that they might have with animation.
Yes. Yeah.
That if you wanted to do what, not so much Lower Decks, but if you wanted to do what they're doing with Prodigy, you know, on a proper budget, it would be like a $200 million show.
Yeah.
So you just, it's not believable that they could do it. So I get exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's hard to compare them. So like this is amazing. I'm really enjoying myself watching the show. That being said, I still do have nitpicks. But...
Oh yeah. Well, I guess we should get into it with Strange New Worlds. The series opens up a little differently than what we've seen before. It does take into account some of the events from Discovery, essentially what happened with Pike. You know, he's seen a vision of his future. He sees where he becomes very disfigured, disabled, potentially dies from the events that happen in the original series. Mm-hmm. And he sees his future. He knows the date. He knows he's on borrowed time. And it's affected him greatly enough that he's been, due to the events of what happened at the end of that season of Discovery, he has been sidelined while they are sort of figuring out what to do with him. And it's introduced more human-like, more than what we see from a lot of captains. It gave me the vibes of, even though it's different, it gave me the vibes from Generations, when like they're in like the Nexus and you see Kirk's ideal world where he's just like chopping wood.
Yes, but that's just because it's out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I get that. But I think that Pike is probably the closest we've gotten to a fully fleshed out captain that's more than just a Starfleet captain, more akin to like Cisco.
Especially for somebody being introduced technically for their first season.
Yeah.
I will say that when they introduce him, like the first scenes that have him in it for this, because I mean, it doesn't start off with Pike. It starts off with showing like a first contact going wrong, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Everything with Pike in these few scenes, we see him, he's had like a woman over for a night of companionship, but every little piece of his world, inside his cabin, outside his cabin, shows a strange mixture of the love of history, understanding history, and then being comfortable in different types of settings. It's hard to explain, but like he's watching Day the Earth Stood Still. And of course, my fist went into the air and screamed, yes, because I know exactly.
And that he mentions it's a classic and that it's important to watch.
Yeah. And believe it or not, it is important to what this episode is trying to say. But I mean, I think Day the Earth Stood Still is a classic. It is one of the most important science fiction pieces ever made. But there's, he's on horseback riding through the snow by wind turbines, which would be inefficient by this time. But obviously he's keeping them on his land out of some sort of attachment. And then in that shot, a shuttlecraft flies by. So you have this weird mixture of horseback with stuff that we would see today and then the sci-fi. Inside his home, he's making breakfast by hand. There's an antique Bakelite telephone right next to his communicator. He's watching Day the Earth Stood Still on a flat screen TV. And you might go, well, why is there a damn flat screen TV? It's the 23rd century. It's because clearly Pike loves historical artifacts.
Yeah,
well,
and the cabin, parts of the cabin are pulled right out of the 70s. And yet there's parts in the cabin that are, hundreds of years in the future. Yeah. or
what's funny about Pike, though, is if you remember back in Discovery when he was there, he hated the holographic anything. Like, he wanted everybody on a view screen, or he wanted them in person. Like, he didn't want the highly advanced technological side of things, because he just wanted more of, what he could trust.
He needs to see, touch, and feel things to get the whole picture.
Yes.
It really informs us of his character, like these little things. And I thought it was so well done. It was so well done. And we're introduced to Robert April there too, which is another deep cut. But they're not making it like it's an Easter egg member berry. They don't pause on him so you can go, oh, I remember him. Because you shouldn't remember him. You shouldn't. That's the thing. Like, he was only in one episode of the animated series, voiced by James Doohan, and he was white, where this actor's black. This is, and it's fine. I have no problems with that at all.
Well, I mean, he was a one-hit character. He did nothing besides the series, so it was fine to really flip-flop him.
Absolutely, it was, because I think this actor is doing a fantastic job as Robert April.
Oh, yeah, and totally.
I totally buy the fact that he was the first captain of Enterprise. Like, yeah, Robert April went out on the first 5-year mission that Enterprise had after her launch. And Pike was his XO.
Yep.
And then, the actor that portrays him, Adrian Holmes, like, he's a staple of Canadian TV. Doesn't do a lot of American stuff. But, like, he was a guy that was in, like, Highlander the series, The Outer Limits, Stargate SG-1, Battlestar Galactica. His big role up until a few years ago was a show called 19-2, which was a very realistic portrayal of police in Montreal. So a lot of, like, my friends were like, oh, it's the guy from 19-2. But, anybody in the States really wouldn't have any idea who he was.
No, I didn't.
But he's gotten a bunch of awards up here, like our local TV awards.
Every time he's on screen, I like him, though. I'm like, Robert April. Oh, right. He actually does have screen presence, and
yeah. Because what I'm trying to get at is they didn't cast a complete nobody. He's just not big in the States.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, they cast somebody that would have that presence on the show, but
without being distracted,
and it works. Yeah,
they didn't cast like some famous person to just.
But they didn't do like Discovery and cast a bunch of nobodies to be these admirals that were kind of throwaway anyway.
Yeah. So we get the opening where the explanation is, hey, it's your number one who's actually gone missing, so come back to active duty. They do a little hand wavy explanation as to how they're reinstated, because the idea is just you have to go do it. But we get the introduction to the refit and now fixed up and tuned up Enterprise, and like we get a little wasn't there like a little news article on his little tablet that was talking about was it about the Gorn, I think?
Yes, it's actually about Sung, the security officer, and her history.
Yeah,
and it talks about like how she encountered a species that was known as the Gorn. There's not a ton known about them.
They haven't been seen, or we have no visual records of them.
And that's trying to tie into Arena later on, where no one had seen the Gorn yet. And I will say that how they're portraying the Gorn in this is very interesting. I like it. They are a threat, a big threat, and it actually makes Kirk a real badass in Arena.
Yeah, taking away the cheesiness of it when it was filmed in the 60s. What they were trying to portray was, here is an alien, like, that's not just a cold-blooded alien. It is an alien that sees other intelligent species as just purely prey.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reasoning with them, because you're not viewed as the same level.
Yeah, and they're just wanting to eat you and lay their eggs inside you. That's what you are to them.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting how they went. I hope that we never see them. I hope
so too.
I hope that the only portrayal we see of them is like a monstrous drawing that we see like kids draw of them or something like the Boogeyman. That's all I ever want to see. But we then get, on that shuttle, we get the Passover, and it's almost like the reveal from the motion picture. Like that was clearly what they were going for.
Quick. They cut it off pretty quick, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They had to put something in, but that was a pretty impressive shot.
Sure.
It's like, and so far we're so many minutes into the show, and there hasn't been like flash cuts and crazy things happening and dizzying camera work. It's just been slow build, and I'm thinking, okay, this is so far so good. Like the first couple episodes of this, I'm sitting here, wringing my hands, going, I don't know if this is going to be good or not. But we get a first contact episode that establishes the characters. It's sort of expected that you've seen the show before or you've seen these characters before, but they do a good enough job of giving little introductions to the new cast.
Totally. Yep.
And I mean, from the original series, we really, as far as people like characters that people would know, is we have Uhura, we have Spock, I guess Nurse Chapel,
Dr. Mbenga is in the original series.
Yeah, I think he's in 2 episodes, 2 or 3.
Yeah, I remembered him. I remembered him when they first announced the fact that Dr. Mbenga was going to be there. I instantly knew who they were talking about.
And
I remembered him from being a kid.
And honestly, great casting there too.
Yep.
Yeah,
the show is very well cast.
It is totally very.
I mean, the only person. I mean, I could say La'an. I don't know if that character needs to. The girl that plays her, Christina Chong, is good, but it's almost a little too always uptight and intense. Like
that'll change in
in
an episode coming up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, as first introductions, I was like, okay, here's a cast of real people that feel like it's a world, they live in this world. She was the only one that felt like she was trying to play a character. But I feel the character grew on me as the episodes went by. Part of that may be that she's the least experienced of the main cast as far as like what production she's actually been in. So it might be just new like we're getting a lot of fairly veteran actors or actors that have done a fair amount of work. And I would say, again, she's not bad, but she was the weakest of the main crew, at least from what I saw in episode 1.
Okay, that's fair.
I would say Dr. Mbenga is a great addition. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about, a Enterprise like TOS era show without a Bones character, but I realized if you cast a Bones character, wouldn't it just be a little too hacky? He talks a certain way, and in the recent movies, he was fine for those movies. I don't know how
Carl Urban's a treat regardless, right?
Yeah, like if you weren't going to get him, who would you really want to get? You know what I mean? So I'm glad that they went with, his predecessor. And I could see, and it's also interesting, like they've had African Americans on the show, but they haven't really had like a leading actor in any of these shows where it's like an African, like from Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, with the accent and everything else.
Yeah, like it's the different culture. And I was like, cool. Like it's interesting, and he's already getting later on in the series, more interesting parts to him. But yeah, I guess the other main cast we have is Erica Ortegas, who's the helmsman. So at some point something happens, and we get like Sulu and Chekhov, right? So
yeah, but I mean, I think that's because obviously crews do change around.
Well,
And
yeah, and Chekhov's not in season 1, right? So
yeah, well, he's supposed to be on the ship somewhere in season 1. It's just that he's not a bridge officer.
yeah, because he's like,
We never see him.
yeah. So cool.
Can I mention T'Pring? The actress that plays T'Pring does a fantastic job.
Yes.
Oh yeah, totally.
I just wanted to say that. Go ahead.
Oh yes, yes. And I mean, was I the only one a little worried when they were introducing her?
I was worried, and I'm still worried, because I think while the actress is doing a fantastic job, there's only so much that you can do before it gets a little old with the story that they're at least trying to show between Spock and T'Pring.
What's going to have to happen is at some point there's going to have to be some event that makes it so they don't talk for the next few years.
Yeah, and I also...
and I think I know when it's going to happen, but we'll talk about that.
Okay.
We'll talk about that when we do the full season.
I also think that they're doing something wrong with T'Pring writing-wise. But I think Gina Sandhu, who's playing T'Pring, is doing a fantastic job with what she's given.
Oh yeah.
And this I probably should talk about it right now. It's since 2009 there has been a pattern in writing Vulcans that basically has them being the villains, that they're racist, xenophobes.
Well, Enterprise kind of started that.
Yes, but there was reason for that. Like, they were clearly being influenced by the Romulans, and when they threw off the Romulan control, or when the Vulcans started interacting with humans more, they understood the illogic in it.
Their xenophobia went away the more they actually interacted with people.
Yes. And even Lower Decks has this problem. It is a problem since 2009 that Vulcans tend to come across as pricks.
Yep.
They're not being logical. They're just being illogical, filled with xenophobia and hate. And unfortunately, Strange New Worlds has also been showing that.
That's because J.J. Abrams sees them and goes, they're evil elf people.
I don't know. It's like
that sigh was because I'm probably right.
Maybe, but I mean, this is the culture that has infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and they totally don't show that ever. Even T'Pring is kind of a bitch to non-Vulcans, and she looks down on them as being
it's almost as if they've determined that that the logical route would mean that you don't have to be nice to people, because it would be illogical to be nice. Why do you have to be nice? When the reality is, wouldn't it be more logical to be harmonious?
Yeah, and that's the way the Vulcans were supposed to be as one of the founding members of the Federation, that they saw the fact that their xenophobia and distrust of others was a fault, that it did not represent this IDIC, this ideal that Surak taught, that we together can do more than we apart. And I don't know, Strange New Worlds has been bothering me with that every time we kind of go to Vulcans, including T'Pring, it's been really negative. But I want to move on, because in general, I really have a lot of positive things to say about Strange New Worlds. I just wanted to talk about it here.
And I mean, it's good. We're getting the cast sort of out of the way here. We also have an actor cast as Kirk's brother, which we only see in like one episode during this part, and then I think we see him again in what we're going to talk about when we do like the full series once every episode's out. So little tease, like so this episode does some techie wecky stuff where they modify their genomes to make themselves have which I had a problem with it. I'm like, isn't that super against everything that they stand for? Plus having a Khan's descendant on the ship take part in this.
I mean, no, it's illegal to tinker with your genome. It's full on illegal. You go to jail for life. And Nurse Chapel just so happens to say, it's going to be fun. I'm going to tinker with your genome.
And it's okay because it won't be permanent. That's their reasoning. I'm like, but
no.
But you no. Not a,
Look, if you're going to give me a disguise to make me go down onto the planet, give me plastic surgery instead of shooting me full of retrovirus to temporarily change my DNA. Because honest to God, I don't want to have problems with my DNA from just tiny little transcription mistakes. Screw you.
But what would have worked better is if they made the alien race look a certain way. Maybe they had larger ears. We're not talking like full on Ferengi, but they could have done something where the explanation is, we're going to make you all prosthetics that would even fit over top of Spock's ears. We're going to make you prosthetics and put them on because this is a race of people and a planet and a culture of people that are somewhere, mid 20th century. They wouldn't even have the tech to make, the latex that we're going to use or something. So they could have done it a different way. It felt like they hand waved this because they wanted to show a neat computer effect. And it's one of the few times in this first 5 episodes where they did an effect for the sake of it. And I felt like maybe they did this because they had to use it to present, we're presenting this to the higher ups at Paramount and saying, hey, look, we're spending your money on it's got some cool stuff in it. And I just feel like they threw a little bit of that in here when it didn't need to be there. Maybe they just wanted to spend the budget.
But overall, the message of the episode was really positive. It was, let's work together.
Little on the nose, some of the footage they were showing of recent events. And I was like, okay, please don't be super overt. And they don't really do that beyond this episode.
Yeah.
So cool. We have a good, personally, I think this might be the strongest pilot they've ever done for a live action Star Trek.
Oh, I kind of agree. There's not another series premiere that I've enjoyed more than this one.
Wow. I might disagree, but I see what you're saying.
I mean, I like DS9, pretty well too, but still.
I still think that Enterprise probably has the best pilot.
But consider this. This didn't need to be a 2-parter.
Nope.
This was a single 1-hour episode that probably set up everything better than the pacing even than some of these double part premieres.
I agree with that. I do.
It's better than TNG.
Yeah,
as much as season 1 was terrible.
But as much as I like Encounter at 4 Point, it's nostalgic. It's not a good episode.
No, it's awful.
And this is legitimately a good pilot.
Sure.
This is something that, you remember when they put Discovery season 1, episode 1, and it was 1 and 2, I think they premiered on CBS. You could have put this on CBS and it would have done much better ratings than I think they would have expected. The only reason they didn't is they're longer episodes. They're full hour, so they wouldn't be able to air with commercials, or you'd have to put them in a 90-minute slot. But I feel like they probably should have put this on there and said, hey, after this episode, every episode's on CBS or on Paramount Plus. So, first episode ends. We even get the little fun ending of an episode where they have something either something to say about what they learned, or a little quip between the crew. I'll note that in this episode, one thing you can tell, comparatively to the other captains, that it's different with him is he does do a lot of things by the book, and it's business, but he does give his bridge crew latitude to insert their own personality into how they talk, which I was worried was going to be a little too much. Maybe they were going to go is this going to be super disrespectful? And it's not. He lets them have some latitude, and as we go on to these next couple episodes, you start to see, he lets them to a point. And then he'll come in and say, hey, no, this is not how you should be talking. So I was like, oh, good. But again, a lot of any little quips and worries I had in episode 1 were fairly quickly dashed. So if we had to rate let's rate maybe out of 10, what did you think the first episode?
Go ahead, Steve.
I would probably give it an 8.5.
Yeah, as a pilot, it's an 8 or 9 for me too. I would say, as a singular episode, as television, it's about an 8. As Star Trek, it's about a 7 for me.
I can see that.
The way I actually like count points on like what I think works and what doesn't work, and how the plot flows and how the acting is. So a lot of my ratings tend to fit right between 4 and 6. It's like a big bell curve. I'm sorry if I'm being really technical about this, but it's really rare for me to give something that's like 8 or 9. I liked this episode. I thought it was good, and I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Which is good considering you were giving like 1s and 0s for Picard season 2.
Yes. Well, yeah.
If that makes
but
any sense,
deservedly
right?
so.
Yeah. No, like it was.
There was no logic in it whatsoever.
It was hard for you to give it above a 2 on almost every episode last time.
I don't think I ever gave an episode above 2.5.
Yeah, season 3, episode 1 and 2, I think you gave it like a 4.
Yeah, the first episode of season 2 actually was barely okay, and maybe it was a 4. But like, when I give something between like a 4 and 6, I'd say, yeah, it's okay. Because I still think that the first episode had a lot of problems. There's some really big problems with continuity.
Some of the sciencey stuff, but I think to somebody who doesn't have like a trained Star Trek eye, you wouldn't notice it.
No. Well, if you're just looking at this as a simple story, this would more likely be like a 7.5 out of 10. No, I agree with that.
Now, did Uhura meet T'Pring or hear about her?
She has in the episodes that we've watched. I'm not sure if it's in the first 5 episodes, but she does know. Okay,
because it's funny because in a quote from a mock time, she says something to Spock. She's lovely, Spock. Who is she? She's T'Pring, my wife. Yeah. They've already kind of messed things up a little.
Yeah. I don't know if she's had direct contact yet.
It would be very difficult for me to believe that Uhura has not heard about T'Pring, as she has come on board multiple times. Yeah. Many officers know about her. She's communicating back and forth. At the very least, outside of the first 5 episodes here, in the most recent episode that aired.
Then let's just retroactively work the headcanon and say that Uhura was being sarcastic to him in the original series.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That she's just sort of ribbing him. Oh, who's that pretty lady?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe then he just doesn't get the joke. Let's go with that. So the second episode, Children of the Comet. This is the episode that had the scene that I had seen previously. So during the presser event, they showed the scene where they're all sitting down to dinner, and Uhura is recounting her past and how she ended up in Starfleet. And that's where this episode is where we know for sure that it's not this galactic ending overarching story. We're getting individual character episodes, and we get more into Uhura's character in this episode, and then I think a couple later than we ever did, I think, in the original series.
Yeah, I think they're building her up very well. I actually really appreciate the work they're putting into Uhura.
And I wasn't sure, again, the casting, I was like, is this going to be good? This woman is fantastic playing her. Yes. This episode is more, even though it's got some science issues, which we're probably going to have to say for every single one of these.
Yes.
This is an episode that probably captures the idealism and wonder and feeling that we felt had been missing from Trek for 20 years. More so, like, this was the real introduction of, hey, this is going to be a different Trek show than what we've been presenting. It's an episode purely about miscommunication and communication in general.
Yep.
I really liked this episode. Yeah, the science was garbage, but I thought it was well paced, well acted. I thought the special effects weren't over the top. They actually added to the story. Yeah, my only negatives that I have down in my notes are just the poor science. That it was unneeded to have the kind of bad science that was shown on screen. Like it wouldn't have taken any effort to make it good science, and it wouldn't have changed the story.
Yeah, and we'll get like the basic plot is Uhura is being introduced. She doesn't know that she feels that she should really be at Starfleet. She feels like she's doing it just for her grandmother's sake, who was a previous officer. Who I'm really hoping at some point that if we get to see like a holo like video or memory flashback, that they end up somehow finding a way to get Nichelle Nichols in to play the grandma. Just if you, I know member berries, we don't like that. I just feel like that would be a nice nod because I don't think we can find any other way to get her in the show or get her into Trek anymore. And it would be, and if not a video, it would be neat if they could work her way into like a Photoshop family photo.
Sure, I can see that.
And I'd be like, okay, that's, if you're going to, do a nod, do that. But anyway, and they are observing a planet with a primitive race that is not spacefaring. They don't appear to be at anything above like hunter-gatherer yet. Like they just started building like shelters on a planet that is very resource deprived, especially of water. And as they're going near it, they're like, hey, there's a meteor that's going to smash into the planet. So they go to like move it and find out the meteor itself is like a giant like alien ship. They find an alien race that says you can't touch it because our religion is that we worship it. And they end up having to go, or her has to go on and find a way to communicate with an alien technology, an alien AI. And through an interesting means of events, we end up having it where are we getting into the thing where this is like predestined? I'm not sure. Like they think they've altered the course.
Free will is a lie.
Because
there are no choices in the universe that haven't already been made.
Yeah, the AI of the comet had predicted what we were going to do, so it manipulated us into doing what it wanted, so that it could basically seed the planet with water.
Yeah, but what we see it doing, it's actually not really a comet. It's actually the size of a large icy moon.
Okay, yeah.
And it plows through the atmosphere of the planet in such a way as that the entire planet would be killed by the heat pulse of it burning through.
Shush you. We're telling a heartwarming story. Shush.
Yeah, I actually liked this episode too.
This is one of those episodes where I can go, okay, science be damned, this was a fun episode.
It was.
I liked it.
And we learn a little more about Uhura. We get a little space mysticism, which I hope we don't listen to more. But yeah, this one, another 7 out of 10 for me.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll probably give it about the same. I thought it was kind of goofy, some of the stuff with the aspects with the alien interface and some of that stuff, but it was overall it was fun.
It was basically Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Let's sing a musical song to make it do things.
Yeah. So I mean, I was entertained. So I'll give it a 7.
I like this more than the first episode, believe it or not. I gave this 6.7 out of 10. I thought there was more interesting character scenes.
So take the bad science out, this would have been an 8?
If I take the science out, it probably would have been an 8, yeah.
Okay.
Progress.
And I did like that the aliens on the planet we never interacted with. I was like, because at the end
didn't have to.
And at the end,
I appreciated the work that it went into their makeup, and we didn't have to interact with them. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
In the end of the first episode, we get the introduction of the Prime Directive. So, carrying forward with this it made sense that this was an episode where they couldn't violate it.
But the Prime Directive wouldn't have applied in the first episode.
Shh. But you can
another one of my arguments is that 95% of the episodes that talk about the Prime Directive, it actually does not apply. And it's hard to actually find good episodes where the Prime Directive does apply.
I guess in the original series, wasn't there the one where they were like selling arms or arming one side of the country or something against the other? And they kept...
Nope, then the Prime Directive wouldn't apply because that civilization had already been interfered with.
Insurrection the movie?
No, that civilization had already been interfered with.
Damn.
It's really tough to come up with episodes where the
time traveling back in time on Earth.
Temporal prime directive might apply. Yes.
Okay.
Theoretically, yeah, that
All right.
actually might be okay. Like Operation, isn't it? No, it's not Operation Annihilate, is it? Damn, it's the episode where we see Gary 7.
Isn't that
But then
Operation
again, Gary
Earth?
7's on Earth at that point, so that technically means Earth's being interfered with. Therefore, we can.
Wasn't there one in Enterprise where they go back to like the 1800s?
Yeah, the Vulcans.
Yeah.
Well, that's Carbon Creek.
Yeah, but that's 1900s.
Oh, 1900s.
Yeah, that's the 1900s. And that does mean that aliens, if the Federation encountered Earth for some reason in a weird way, that they could interfere with Earth because the Vulcans had already interfered. Like, really, it's tough. Like, that one thing that says, hey, if aliens have already interfered on this, the Prime Directive doesn't apply. So, like, a piece of the action, Prime Directive just totally doesn't apply because the culture's already been screwed.
So, yeah. I know there's got to be at least one episode where it actually fits.
I'm sure we'll get to it. Yeah.
It would have to be an episode where it's, yeah, like it can't just be that you're right, like where we just like don't give them arms or give them arms. It has to be also a First Contact episode.
Yes.
Where First Contact was an issue. Oh, okay. Weird. What about Discovery? In what was the planet that the what's his name is from? Oh, the
Taminar?
one action. Yeah,
it's the Kelpians.
Yeah,
Prime Directive doesn't apply.
Damn.
They made that argument in the episode. But here's the thing: there's two cultures on that planet, one of which is warp capable. Therefore, Prime Directive does not apply.
Yeah. Okay then. So basically, no.
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it? When you start breaking it down like that, it's like it Prime Directive basically is the don't be Von Daniken gods to Bronze Age societies. That's basically what it is.
So basically, every episode of Stargate.
Don't
do that.
Don't do that. Mm-hmm.
Don't be don't be a system lord.
Except for the fact that there's a Stargate on that planet, which means they've already been interfered with by another alien civilization, so the Prime Directive doesn't apply. Boom.
Well, basically, don't seed. Okay, don't be Stargate universe where you're on the seed ship that's seeding the planets with Stargates.
There you go. That works.
It works. It's 2 seasons of a 17-season franchise. But yes. Okay, back to this. So yeah.
All right.
To the comment, pretty good. And different writers, different directors. So again, the fear of maybe having problems there kind of dissipated a little bit with me. Then we have the episode that I have. It's called Ghosts of Ilaria or Ilaria. Illyria. But for me, I just called it Space Ghosts of Mars. Watching it. This is the episode I like the least.
Ooh, hold on. Let me look at my ratings. Yeah, actually, I'm with you.
I agree.
But does it mean it's bad? No, this was an entertaining episode. This just wasn't very good sci-fi. This is, hey, the crew goes to a planet to study old relics. They get stuck in a lightning storm. Lightning ghosts decide to attack them, which we find out are not actually attacking them. They're trying to help them because the people of the planet have evolved into energy beings who live inside the storms. And one of their pre-non-evolved people happens to be number one, who's secretly not actually human and has magical Deus Ex Machina saving powers.
Oh, yeah. She can stop a warp core breach by absorbing the entire burst of energy somehow.
And then they can use her blood to save people magically.
Ala Khan from Into Darkness.
And the explanation is I had to hide myself because you don't allow people that are genetically modified into Starfleet.
Which is not the case.
No.
Everything about this episode just kind of works against the lore.
Yeah, because I was going to say it's not the Starfleet doesn't allow genetically modified people in. It's humans are not allowed to be genetically modified.
No, it's that when you're in the Federation, you're not allowed to genetically modify yourself, regardless of species.
Yes,
But
once you're in.
Once you're in, so the Illyrians modifying themselves before they want to join the Federation is perfectly okay.
Yeah,
There's
just mean
nothing wrong
they would
with
have
that.
to cease doing so.
Yeah.
Unless the only way to keep their race alive was to keep doing something.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the argument presented there is, I don't know, it's kind of silly. It's silly.
And this was, a way to have conflict between some of the characters, and I was okay with it. This is a 5 out of 10 for me.
Go, Steve, go.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat, just because I don't like the Deus Ex Machina part of it, with her super blood and ability to just kind of counteract the entire thing. And then the rest of it was kind of meh, with Pike and Spock stuck on the planet.
Let's hand wave the solution to let's ignore that she lied. Can you imagine? Like I know that there are people that lied about their age to get into the military, especially back in like World War II era. But like, can you imagine if you just like you were the XO of the flagship ship, and then you're just like, by the way, I'm not who I said I was. I lied about who I am on my application. You actually have no idea who I am and can't verify my background.
And all of those Starfleet medical exams that would have gone on beforehand,
they would have caught it.
Yeah, they would have caught it. All those transporter logs,
or if the argument, or if the argument was somehow she falsified shit, it'd be like falsified all my documents. It's like nobody noticed that you don't ever get a cold. No, nobody noticed that like extreme heat and temperature doesn't affect you.
Nobody noticed that you can absorb nuclear blasts.
Nobody noticed that you can pick up somebody that weighs 3 times your weight, but you're supposed to be human. It's like that.
Yeah, it's baffling. So guess what my rating is? So you both gave it a 5 out of 5.
Is that a 2?
No,
you give it a 6.
4.8.
Really?
Yeah, and it's, remember, like I said, the way I kind of score things there, it's a bell curve.
Okay.
So most things should be at 5, and it's tough to go above.
I see what you mean. Okay, so you had to take away some points for the stupid science and the
stupid science. The stupid science. I actually thought that my positives for this episode were the pacing was fantastic. Everybody acted their hearts out. I enjoyed some of the solutions and the weirdness of a virus that likes light. I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and we do get the one good thing about this episode is we get more backstory on Dr. Mbenga and his daughter is introduced.
Yes, and I really, really liked the line that Spock gives in this episode where he says, "I'm arming us with knowledge." Like that says a lot about his character. There's a few things in this series where characters do one line and I just want to like raise my fist in the air because it's so positive.
Put that on a t-shirt or
no,
a mug.
It's so positive. It's so Star Trek. It's I'm not going to use a weapon. I can win the day through just learning, through understanding.
Exactly.
You know, I love that. I absolutely love that.
And regardless of what you may think of the science, the concept behind what Dr. Mbenga is having to do to save his daughter is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, even if it doesn't make sense.
It is brought up later, and we'll discuss. It happens in later episodes, but it doesn't have to make sense. I know what they're going for here. It's that he's worried about his daughter with having a disease that can't be cured by Starfleet or by the Federation, and he's not so worried. Like, he can put her in the pattern buffer, whatever. Say what you will about the science behind this, about how and what the morality is of him basically making it so she doesn't age. She's trapped in the pattern buffer forever. It pulls her out to read her stories and talk to her and yada yada and do tests and research. But so he's not really, after he finds out that they're going to give her additional power, they're permanently giving him permission to use the power now. you can tell that what's going on and worrying him more, just from his look on his face and like the moments they take of introspection. He's not worried that he's not going to find a cure for her in her lifetime because of what he can do. He's worried he's not going to find a cure for her in his lifetime.
Yeah.
Because he has potential to age 20, 30 years, and she only ages a few days because of what he's doing. And what happens, who will be willing to try to save her when he's gone? And there will be a point where she starts to notice he looks older.
Mm-hmm. It is tragic. It's tragic.
So I do like what they're doing there from that story standpoint. You can ignore some of the science for the sake of the character development in this case. Cool idea. So yeah. I mean, we're giving it, this is high praise if you comparatively to what we've talked about on the last 3 or 4 years. Then moving on, we have Memento Mori, which is I think they call it Remembrance Day in this, which is I wonder if that's because of Canada or in England, but like it was also released on was it your Veterans Day or something? What do you call it?
Maybe Memorial Day.
Could have been.
I don't remember the day it was released.
Yeah, they call it Remembrance Day, and it's like, and the idea of everybody wearing their insignia or of their like little symbol of their previous ships that they served on, that's 100% out of like Canada with everybody wearing their poppies. Sure. So it was clear, like the World War I style Remembrance / Memorial Day services that they run were very apparent here.
Yes.
Like not even so much like World War II, like specifically World War I style.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, cool. So this is the Gorn episode. Hopefully it's the last time that we see the Gorn as a major threat, where I hope we don't have a situation where they become the Borg.
They said that they're going to have the Gorn become a major part, like kind of like the Klingons were in TOS.
Okay, that's fine if it's not every episode. I don't want them to be this like overarching enemy that we're going to have to save the universe from. If they have issues with a few of their ships now and then, random episodes, cool. I don't want this to be like, hey, the Gorn are invading our space. Be like, but that didn't happen. Like, I don't want this. This is supposed to be prime universe. I don't want this to be like, hey, by the way, TOS didn't happen because, we have too much proof that the Gorn existed. So regardless, this was like the most horror-like I think I've seen Trek ever.
It gets pretty close to that
from the beginning.
Yeah,
like I thought I was seeing the setup for Aliens. Like there's a lot of blood on the ground. They go to a colony planet, find that people are missing. We get La'an having like post-traumatic flashbacks to her time when her colony was taken over, and her brother, which I felt it was a little much with him, how he happened to have a book that he had produced with their entire language in it. Like, when did he have time to figure out their entire Morse code?
I don't know, augment super soldier brains.
Yeah, maybe. Damn it.
I can explain it. In this, believe it or not, this is my favorite episode of the season so far.
Really?
This is by far my favorite. Even
though wait. Okay. First half, I was iffy. When it becomes Wrath of Khan / submarine battles in space, I get very happy.
It was very good, but here's the thing. While this might be my favorite episode due to the acting, due to the pacing, due to the intricacies of like how they're trying to solve this problem, this episode also has the worst science of the season so far. This made me tear hair out of my head with the bad science. And
let's just drop a bomb on them because their gravity will pull it in.
No, I mean that part was actually okay.
Okay. See, their science.
Okay, so you want me to go into it?
Okay, I'll set it up. So, turns out this whole thing was a trap by the Gorn This is how they capture ships and take people to their breeding grounds where they turn you into like egg sacs. And they realize very quickly that we're outgunned, and they're quicker ships. So they're going to have to think differently. And for the first time since 2009 Trek came out, we are getting actual naval battles in space and not like Star Wars TIE fighter battles in space, which seems to be what they tried to do. Like
all of that was great.
This felt like it's the best way to describe it is Star Wars is the Air Force in space. Battlestar Galactica is like two giant aircraft carrier destroyers fighting in the ocean. Star Trek is about submarines. And that's what this is.
Mm-hmm. Steve, say something before I start going into it. Did you like this one?
What's that?
Did you like this one?
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it. Just watching all of the different things take place in it. I get like majority of the show, like, yeah, the science for a lot of the modern Trek, they claim to have scientists on staff and make it make sense. But it, even from somebody that doesn't know all the science or know all of the lore involved with it, I can still sense something's not right. Even if I can't pinpoint what it is.
I hear that. It's still an 8 out of 10 for me. I'll say that just now before you start. But a good example I would say is a show that they want to say that they have scientists working on the show and giving them advice and being technical directors. There's a big difference between the science in this and the science in For All Mankind. And we'll talk about that some other time.
Yes. So my rating actually for this episode is 7.5 out of 10.
Whoa, this is like the best. This might be like Trek that you would have considered being good in the 90s.
Yes, actually it would have been. Even though the science is god-awful and frustrating, everything else about this episode is hitting the mark.
And remember, some episodes in the 90s had bad science.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So this fits right in. Would you say, would this fit in like seasons 5 through 7 of TNG?
Yeah, I would. Okay. I would also say this fits in fairly well with like season 3 or even 4 of Enterprise.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's very good.
So yeah, so you want to get into the science then quickly with it?
Sure. Okay, so we have we have constant confusion between the port and starboard sides of the ship. By the way, that's continually confused. We're shown damage happening to the starboard part of the ship, and they're reporting port, etc., etc. That seems minor, but in a show in this episode where they're detailing how the damage is happening to the ship in very detailed ways, that does kind of fall apart. They also seem to imply that the warp nacelles provide impulse power, which they don't. But that's the Trek lore. What really comes down to it is I went to school for astrophysics, so the astronomy stuff in this was mind melting to me. We have a Class M planet in this star system. Okay, that's this colony world. But it turns out there is a brown dwarf, which is basically a star that only had enough mass to burn deuterium, which is heavy hydrogen. It can't produce normal fusion between hydrogen and hydrogen like our sun does, so it doesn't go main sequence. But brown dwarfs are fairly large, let's put it that way. And it's only 200 million kilometers away from this Class M planet, which basically means it's about 1 1/3 AUs away.
Okay.
If you want to make a round estimate, just think the distance between Earth and Mars when they're close. That's not a perfect equivalent, but just that, okay?
So what you're saying is Magic Gorn Planet.
Magic Gorn Planet, but here's where it even gets crazier. They decided to have the camera linger on stellar data for this star system in one of the briefings. So I get to have a whole bunch of information that says Starfleet seemingly does not know that there is a massive black hole in this system for some reason.
Because the brown star is masking it.
Because Pike, I guess, is surprised that there is a black hole that has an event horizon large enough that actually seems to suggest that it has a mass somewhere in the range of 1 million solar masses. Regardless, that's also about 200 million kilometers away from this Class M planet. The brown dwarf that does not look like a brown dwarf is orbiting within the accretion disk of this black hole. There is no mention of the incredible radiation that would be occurring from this accretion disk. This brown dwarf is said to be slowly falling apart because of the accretion disk, but that only happens at the end of the episode when it's dramatically important.
Did this episode not, like the solution to this episode, not sound like TOS, like to a T at least?
Oh, it did, because it actually, the explanation, like, we're going to do this thing called gravitational redshifting. Well, yeah, that actually is a thing. But how they're doing it, how they accelerate through the accretion disk against the accretion disk's rotation, actually would result in them not only suffering from frame dragging effects, which means time travel, but as they're accelerating towards the event horizon of this black hole, they're actually going to be moving slower compared to the outside universe, and therefore, regardless of how much time passes on Enterprise, when they shoot out past the accretion disk, it's likely centuries have passed in the outside universe, because they were approaching very close to the event horizon.
I was waiting to see how much you talk about the time problem.
There are significant issues with that, and I don't know. It's every time there's something that deals with this black hole, how it's just suddenly a surprise that this galactic core scale black hole is there. I don't know. It blows my mind. Like, the science in this episode is awful. Even though it tries to actually sound smart, and it has ideas at its core that actually do make sense.
It almost would have worked better if they didn't talk about it.
Don't talk about it. Don't give me numbers. Because when you give me numbers, it means that you thought about those numbers to put them on screen. And that means you should have thought about those numbers before you put them on screen.
Should have focused more on the Das Boot combat than...
Don't accelerate Enterprise without shields through the accretion disk of a black hole against its rotation, for God's sake. Everyone's dead on that ship.
What would have been better, in my mind, is if they decided to use the gravitational pull of what's happening there to their advantage. Their final, bomb that they were going to set up and they were going to blow up, what I feel they should have done is blown it up in such a way behind the Gorn ship, so that to avoid it, the Gorn ship would have darted itself forward and got itself caught in the gravitational pull and then would have been crushed.
Or it had to dart closer to the event horizon and therefore move slower compared in its time rate is slower.
And then they could have escaped. They could have escaped, and by the time the Gorn gets out there, Picard finds the ship.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Gorn ship just comes out in a couple centuries.
It comes out, and there's a whole, and that colony planet now has full defenses. They come out and they've been waiting. Because
remember, the Gorn ship is further away from the event horizon than Enterprise ever than Enterprise is. So therefore, they have all the reaction time in the universe to wait to see what's going on.
That's how I would have, well, not corrected, but how I would have done it is forced them closer so that they can escape.
Yep.
And then, still entertaining episode.
I love this episode. Absolutely everything else about it was stellar.
And we're getting to our final episode here, which is Spock Amok. Now, I watched this one for the first time tonight when I watched a batch of the latest episodes. And this... in some ways, I found this the weakest episode.
Yep.
Okay.
It had parts that I really didn't care for. I'm just not a fan of Spock in this show. Now, I like the actor, Gregory Peck's grandson, right?
I think it's just the direction.
Yeah, this episode felt more like Stargate and less like Star Trek. It got a little too goofy. But then again, I got to take myself back and think, yes, it looks modern, but they're supposed to be portraying the show like it was in the 60s. and the 60s show had a lot of goofy bullshit moments in it. So this
Yeah, see, I thought this is not the worst episode of the first of the season overall so far, or even the first 5. I don't.
This was a very generic episode.
Yeah, this was one of the ones that I really don't care. Like, it did nothing for me. Like, I get to Pring and everything else, but I feel like they're gonna burn that out real fast.
The radical empathy race I found interesting.
Yeah,
Like-
but I think the problems that they set up with the Federation diplomats beforehand were really contrived. That's the problem.
This felt like a 60s episode and how easy it was to pick apart what was going to happen.
But I liked how Pike just kind of inserted himself into the situation and just was completely rude and belligerent.
I mean, there's that. Number one, and Noonien Singh going on like the bingo game.
Enterprise bingo? Yeah.
I was like, okay, this feels like, I don't know. Like, is this like the episode? This felt like one of those silly episodes, like when everybody on the crew turned into children.
Okay.
I mean, I was okay with it. That they did what they did, but my takeaway from this episode, the most interesting thing in this episode to me personally was Dr. Mbenga turns out as a big fly fisherman.
I thought that was cute.
And he's got his little hat that everybody's making fun of him for it. But then he goes, oh, fine, I'll take the hat off. And then it just shows, like, while all this stuff is happening to the rest of the crew and there's all this stressful things happening, and he's just there, and he is chilling, just fishing and finally getting, like, to calm himself down. I'm like, cool. Here's, just little character moments like that I don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
But this was clearly a let's build the characters moment. I think not my dislike, but my indifference to it is I'm not a fan, like you said, of anything to do with with the
Vulcans.
Yeah,
this is the episode that really brought the Vulcan issue to the forefront, where the Vulcans are just coming across like it doesn't matter. Every non-main character Vulcan and some main character Vulcans since 2009 basically are just pricks. They're assholes, and they're purposeful, like, antagonists.
I'm also not a fan of the Freaky Friday trope.
No.
Yeah, it didn't do anything for me either.
And at the same time, like, aren't they only supposed to have sex like once every 6 or 7 years or something?
No. I mean,
or is that when they get horny?
That's when they get, like, super horny. That's when.
Okay. See, I was always under the impression that they only ever had sex, like, in their lifetimes every 7 to 10 years or something.
No.
It's just that's when they're, like, compelled to.
Yeah, that's when they're compelled to. It's like when they can't really. It's more than just when they get super horny. It's when they get super emotional. That's
so
what
when everything takes over. Okay. That brings me down because I was like, why? What's going on? Freaky Friday and Enterprise bingo, and this was a hodgepodge episode of character quirks, and I understand that's what it's for. But it also, out of all the episodes, this one had the most different look. If that makes sense. Like,
it did. Because there was some outdoor stuff.
But even just the way it was shot and the feeling, it felt different. Not necessarily bad, but it was noticeable that it felt like it was done by a different crew.
Maybe. Can I say, like, one of my big positives from this episode that I really thought stood out? I loved the interplay between Jess Bush and Ethan Peck as Chapel and Spock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they actually have chemistry on screen, and all of their interactions in this episode really brought a smile to my face. I think this episode cemented in my mind that Jess Bush is really doing a very good job as Chapel.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
I buy her. That's it.
Well, she also said that she binged TOS to get the gist of the character.
Oh, isn't that amazing when, like, people join a show and they actually do research before they do something, unlike half the other shows that we've been seeing and adaptations of shows that Mike and I have talked about, where we're finding out that like the cast either weren't fans, didn't bother watching because they wanted to take a fresh look. No, even if you're going to do a fresh look or fresh take on a character, you should know where you're coming from.
Can I also should bring up that we have one actor, one character that we haven't talked about at all, and it's a damn shame, because I think that character had great potential, and it's Hemmer, the Anar Andorian type character.
Oh,
that's
you're
the
right.
chief engineer. They are underutilizing him. I mean, he's in the second episode, like he's helping cut vegetables. And he's in a couple of the other episodes, but not really well utilized. He's the chief engineer on board. And I really wanted that character to be explored. Now, I mean, has he popped up in episodes 6 and 7? I think he has. But I don't really recall without looking at my notes exactly how much.
I've watched both. He does not.
And it's a shame. It's a shame.
I think
the actor does a very good job.
I guess is the argument that his hands still need to be fixed or something, maybe, or he's recovered. Well, we'll see. But see, now here's my ignorance. Until his at least his second or third appearance in the show, I thought he was an Andorian. And I thought that's just how they wanted to change the makeup for the show.
No, the Anar are the blind ones.
Yeah, the Anar
they're
are
the
like
offshoot.
they're an offshoot species of the Andorians. They live on Andor as well. But they're kind of psychic. They have certain PK abilities.
I was just waiting for him to call them pink skin.
That would have been funny.
But all of them are blind. All of them are blind. All of them are slightly telepathic.
So they're like the sarcastic but technically nicer versions of their people.
No. I would say that they are just as personality diverse as everyone else. It's just that Hemmer is kind of a gruff dick, and that's fine. But also that remember that the Anar are going extinct. He's one of very few Anar that are left. There might be only at this point. There's only a couple hundred Anar left.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they have a Constitution class starship that had nothing but Anar and Andorians?
No, not that's mentioned on screen. There's one that's Vulcan that gets killed. That's all Vulcans. I think that's Intrepid from TOS. It's assumed that there's one that is at least one that's all Andorians and one that's all Tellarites, but I don't think they're mentioned on screen in TOS what those ships are.
But you're right. I'm hoping that he shows up more for sure. Like what I would like to see, like I would have loved it if when Mbenga was going fly fishing, if he showed up to go fishing with them.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Just to have them sit down and like, he's the only one that like he's got a big grin on his face because he can't make a comment about his stupid hat because he doesn't see it.
Yeah, or like Mbenga wants to talk and Hemmer keeps saying, "Shut up, the fish will hear you," or something like that.
Shut up, the fish will hear you, or would you take off that stupid hat? I can hear it jingling.
Yeah.
They could have done something like that. Like it would be nice to see if some of these senior crew members are, they are buddies outside. Like this would be the equivalent. Like that's their equivalent of doing the poker game, is they go fishing together.
That would have been a lot of fun.
So I mean, it might have been casting constraints or something, or they didn't want to have him if he wasn't key to the plot. But with everybody else getting shore leave, it would have been cool to see him in the background.
Yeah, I just think he's underutilized, and I wish we could see him more.
So hopefully, in episodes 8, 9, and 10, we'll end up seeing more of him. As far as, the end of this is Spock, consummates his relationship after they have their bodies switched back. And what was it? They were using some sort of like paste with crystals.
Yeah. It was clearly like some new age like goop from
And the explanation was like you're either gonna switch back or it's gonna fry your brains.
And they just start screaming, and it's like they're gonna nerve pinch us for this, aren't they? Oh yeah, And that made me laugh. Because Mbenga's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it to me is personally, is a 6.5 out of 10. But still good, like still entertaining. Just it didn't quite reach the heights. Personally,
Me was 5.4 out of 10.
And what about you, Steve? How do you feel about it?
I'll give this one probably about a 5.5.
5.5. Okay, so it's passable. This was the classic filler episode.
Yep.
And that's pretty good. I would say we're averaging, even with the way you score things, Aaron. This is averaging about a B+.
Yeah, I mean, I would still give this first half of the season generally like a C+, B-. Like
Okay.
even the way I rate it, like this is good. I'm enjoying it.
And I'm thinking of the way
really like it.
I'm thinking of the way Mike would probably rate this, and we'll get his thoughts when we do our final review of the whole season. But yeah, it's probably going to average out to about a B, which is darn good for a Star Trek first season.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Like this might be the strongest first 5 episodes of any of the shows.
I know
I can
characters'
see that.
names.
Pardon me?
I know characters' names.
Yes,
That's
After,
true.
like, the first couple episodes, like, oh yeah, that's Erica Ortegas. That's you know,
and we
Yeah,
haven't
I
really
care.
seen her in a episode focused on her yet.
dude. When I know the transporter chief is named Kyle, that says something.
Yep. I
Yeah.
know.
And even I'm drawing a blank on it now, but even like the background characters on the bridge, a few of them have been recurring, so they're not just randos, and they've had a few things to say. And I mean, we haven't had any moments with, like, we had a moment where one of the crew died, and it was in the Gorn episode, right, when they get sucked out into space. It would have been nice to have them introduced earlier, but
Yes, but wasn't that Chief Kyle that got saved?
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was what was interesting, is like the red shirt got saved.
Yeah,
And-
I remember, like, hey, that's Chief Kyle. I remember that's specifically him, even though he's only on screen for a couple seconds. Like,
yeah, and it freaked him out, right? Freaked him out real bad.
Yeah.
So it's we're in a good place, I think, overall.
Yeah.
So
It's so weird being so positive, but I mean, I have been positive about Prodigy and Lower Decks too. So I
But-
mean, it's
but,
not
like,
like it's unique.
I feel like unless they do something dramatic to change the entire feel of the show and turn it into some big, world universe ending plot like all the other ones they've done recently, I don't see that happening. But unless they do that, like, I think I am no longer worried at all about the show, and I can just completely enjoy the what's to be hopefully multiple seasons.
I can only hope so. I want to see how high Captain Pike's hair can get.
I know, it's funny how it keeps growing.
It's
Well, remember, didn't they film part of this during the pandemic? They might have had a hard time getting a good barber.
dude, his hair is spectacular. Like, honest to God, every episode it is getting bigger. I think it's a joke. It has to be a joke.
Well, somebody actually photoshopped themselves wearing his uniform and his hair, but they expanded it like twice as high.
So it's like Johnny Bravo hair.
Yeah, it looked just like that, but silver.
Oh, good Lord. But yeah, so I mean, that's probably a good place to end this. We'll be back maybe after the show airs. Like right now, 7 episodes have aired. After the 10th is aired, we'll make sure that Birdman is able to catch up, and then we'll do a roundtable discussion on the show as a whole. Probably get a few minutes of his takes in the first 2 episodes. But I mean, good Trek. We got this. Like, this is a summer of exciting science fiction. We've got this. The same day the Orville airs, and we'll probably have a discussion on that at some point, because while this is basically TOS in the modern day, that is basically TNG in the modern day.
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah,
easily.
for sure.
And then we've
Agreed.
got Westworld's coming back if it hasn't already. For All Mankind is on, and like when we do a recording on that, it's mostly going to be me and Aaron just going, "Oh my god," and then crying the whole time, talking about how great it is.
I've said in private chats that for All Mankind seemingly is a show made to press every single one of my buttons each episode. I can't even describe how much I love that show.
Well, like Ronald D. Moore assembled the team of the best people from previous Trek shows, along with like I noticed it wasn't on the first couple seasons, but this season where we're in space, without spoiling too much, there's more space tech in it. The Okudas have been hired as the technical advisors for the show.
Yeah, they were in season 2 as technical advisors too.
They've also taken over like parts of the technical designs too.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Like it's like he cherry picked the best people from all the other projects he's worked on to do the show, and it's a love letter to science. It's science fiction, but it's a love letter to science itself.
I would say it's barely science fiction. It's more alternate history that uses real science and real tech, because there hasn't been anything on screen, even up in season 3 that's airing right now, that isn't entirely realistic.
The only time if they do, I think they're doing a season 4. I think it was announced. But if they do that and they make a jump into like the modern year now, like the tech they're using is like 20 years ahead of its time because of events in the show, will hit a point where they're going to have to get more speculative. And
have we talked about season 1 at all, or season 2?
I don't think we did, but we'll have to do that. Maybe we'll do that as our next thing we discuss.
Maybe, because I can sit there at length with every episode talking about like the little nitpicky details.
Maybe you and I will have to work out. On a side note, maybe you and I will have to work out that we do a series of those episodes together.
Maybe. I mean, it might even be like, hey, we need to do like a
whole show
audio commentary track for those shows.
We could, and without getting too far off topic, that is just showing how good some of the sci-fi is right now. We were in a sci-fi drought.
Totally.
The sci-fi had been either really low budget, low quality, or had been like really, really like comedy, over the top stuff like Future Man and other shows that were purely comedic. And now it's like we have 4 or 5 shows out or on the horizon that are serious contenders for some of the best sci-fi of the last 25 years. So
yeah,
very exciting. This is the summer of sci-fi for me. I haven't had a summer of sci-fi since like Stargate, the 2 Stargate shows and Battlestar Galactica would air all back to back on Friday nights. Which is like, now we're going back again like 10, 15 years, right? So I don't know really how to end this other than we were really happy with it, right? So we're all going to come back in a few weeks once this is completed and, share our notes and thoughts on it. And I guess until next time, I'm trying to think of a good way to end it with what is Pike's? What does he say now? He's not engaged. He's not.
Doesn't he say hit it?
Hit it. I guess that's more
engage the accelerator. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm Aaron. How's that? That's it.
You're Aaron. We got Aaron, Steve, and Alex saying bye for now.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango.
Self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.